Hey there, and welcome back to another episode in the Dark Mart Developer Log series. We are now on patch 1.3.2. I've got some new changes to talk about, so let's get into it. The main focus of development for patch 1.3.2 was updating the map and continuing user interface improvements. In this case, that meant doing some more pixel art in order to improve and create new assets. Sprite has been my choice of software for pixel art creation. I used it to make several new sprites to update the forest environment. Some rocks, trees, shrubs, grass, and flowers. After I had some assets to work with, I wanted to create a new map layout. I felt like there was a lot of empty space that was hard to make use of, and I wanted to prevent that from being a problem in this patch. I don't want the player to feel like they're wandering around looking for enemies. It makes the game feel slow and unexciting. In an effort to fix this problem, I tried to design the map to have a more strategic layout, where enemies could be placed close enough to keep the player moving. I'll be keeping an eye on this and working to come up with more ways to make the gameplay more interesting. Another improvement I made in the pixel art department was this unique health potion animation. Before, I was reusing the same animation for both potions. I think this one does a much better job of conveying that a health potion was used. Now let's talk about the user interface changes. The first thing I worked on was creating some custom cursors. I always love it when games include a special custom cursor. It really feels like it enhances the immersion of the game and ties together the aesthetic, especially in a pixel art game, where the standard cursor can look a little bit out of place. In the previous patch, the cursor was software-based instead of hardware-based. The issue with this is that it will always take a little time for the program to calculate where the cursor needs to be while it's moving. Which means visually, it will always trail slightly behind where the cursor actually is. In a game like Dark Mart, giving the player control over aiming their attacks and abilities is very important. So I really wanted to do something about this. In Godot, you can set a custom cursor that will take the place of the operating system cursor. This can be accessed under Project Settings, Display, Mouse Cursor. Pick the custom image that you want. Set the hotspot to be the location on the custom image where you want the click to occur. You might have also noticed that in the previous patch, the cursor disappears in the dark areas where there are no lights. Having an operating system level cursor also helps with these kinds of issues, since it will be drawn over the top of everything at all times. I also did a bunch of work on creating an animated cursor that works with the display project settings in Godot. But in the end, I had to let that go because my web export version of the game was causing the custom cursor to fight with the operating system cursor. I might be able to make use of it if I create a desktop export version at some point. Next thing on my user interface to-do list was to create some more states for the buttons. For my pixel art-based user interface, that just means having sprites for the different phases a button goes through when it's being interacted with. If the button can't be clicked for whatever reason, it makes sense that the user interface should reflect that. This helps the player visually understand what's going on. Then, if the button is available and they click on it, the button needs a pressed state. This only displays for a second, but that brief moment gives the feedback that tells the player that their input was received. Again, it's just about communicating to the player visually what's happening in the game. I still have some buttons that need to have more states added to them, so this will be an ongoing task until I can complete sprites for all the states for each button in the game. I'm also trying to get into experimenting with shaders a bit more. I changed up the lighting shader a bit. Now it will shrink and grow a little bit, giving it some motion. Let me know what you think of this. Do you like lighting in pixel art to have some motion to it, or do you prefer the static style? There were some other basic improvements that I made, like fixing a lot of problems with the ordering of objects on the screen. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get everything working properly. Then I also started looking back into the player script and updating the references to have strong typing. If you're wondering why strong typing is important, it's because it allows Godot to improve performance by more accurately determining how much memory needs to be allocated for certain things. It also helps with writing code, as the editor can improve auto-completion and warnings related to the data type. I'll probably have to go back through a lot of the code that I've written over the course of this project to fix things like this. It has now been just over a year since I started this project to learn about game development. That means there is a lot of code that I wrote while I was still brand new to using Godot, most of which can probably be improved with what I've learned since then. Well, that's everything that I have time for in this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.